The cause or causes of attention deficit disorder, like so many other mental health disorders, are not completely known. However, the myths about ADD and its causes abound. The most common myth is the assertion that ADD is a made-up disease and simply does not exist, but that many doctors, pharmaceutical companies, and teachers have conspired to promote this made-up condition in order to drug and have control over our kids. This conspiracy theory reveals a combination of wishful thinking, denial, and paranoia that many people understandably suffer from today. I'm not saying that the pharmaceutical companies don't make out handsomely from this disorder. For the stimulant medications that are still under patent, the cost of a monthly supply is very often $450 a month. I also agree that there can be an inherent conflict of interest when curing a condition might not be as lucrative as lifelong treatment. I would also agree that many teachers are overwhelmed because the number of students in their classroom is too large to handle effectively. I would further stipulate that most Western doctors think in terms of symptom relief instead of prevention or cure. However, the sad reality about ADD is that it is a real disorder, as shown by the SPECT scans earlier. It is also true that there is no cure for ADD as of yet, but there is effective treatment. Most of the fear about ADD is due to the use of stimulants. It has been the only treatment until now that has proven to be effective. Stimulant medications are amphetamines that can cause addiction in people who do not have attention deficit disorder. The reason for this has to do with the polarity issue that will be discussed shortly. For now, it is enough to say that stimulant medication often has a paradoxical effect with those suffering from attention deficit disorder. Whereas someone with ADD will calm down and focus when taking stimulant medication, people without ADD will become stimulated, hyper-focused, and might well become addicted to the medication if taken long enough. Less than 5% of people suffering from attention deficit disorder will become addicted to stimulant medication. Addiction is defined as the need to continually increase medication to get the same response, and withdrawal symptoms if the medication is discontinued. This does not typically occur with ADD and the stimulants. Generally, it's the same people who make the addiction claim that complain about the opposite. The argument here is that instead of addiction and hyperfocus, the claim is that the stimulants tranquilize the students to the point where they become zombies and therefore easily controlled. It is possible for the stimulants to have the side effect of blunting the affect to such a degree that the stimulant should be discontinued. But this is a problem of medication management and not a problem with the chemical per se. Doctors are overworked and often are not experts in attention deficit disorder. This can lead to poor medication management and has been a big part of why stimulants and ADD itself have such a poor reputation with the general public. In part, because of this PR problem with the stimulants, the many myths as to the causes of ADD have proliferated. Many people have postulated that ADD is caused by allergies. There is no doubt that allergies to certain foods, especially sugars and other simple carbohydrates, can cause symptoms that mimic hyperactive ADD. However, that does not mean that food allergies cause ADD. In my experience, everyone with attention deficit disorder is allergic to simple carbohydrates, such as sugar. But when the diet is restricted and the simple carbohydrates are eliminated, people who are truly ADD will still show the same symptoms. This happens with many other disorders and points out why making an accurate diagnosis is so important. When a young child receives poor grades in school, that might indicate ADD, but it also could be indicative of a loss in the family, such as a divorce. The problem could be ADD, the divorce, or both. Another myth is the idea that ADD results from subluxations in the spinal cord. This is the chiropractic explanation. I have a friend who is an esteemed chiropractor and extremely skillful, who believes in this hypothesis. We have had a running bet for 15 years about this issue and have had many clients in common with attention deficit disorder. He has not been able to cure attention deficit in even one client, but continues to believe that he can. This is another example of wishful and magical thinking. Unfortunately, when it comes to ADD, this kind of thinking is the rule rather than the exception. I agree that subluxations can cause people to think less clearly, and when the subluxations are fixed, their thinking improves. But if they have attention deficit disorder, they will still show the signs of the disorder before and after the subluxations are corrected. Another prevalent myth states that modern living is much too fast and that electronic devices such as TV cause ADD. This explanation is used to explain why the reported incidence of ADD has grown in recent years. In my opinion, the problem with this argument is that modern living does not cause ADD, but rather does a great job of mimicking the disorder. One of the hallmarks of the disorder is that most people can be presented with numerous stimuli and yet screen out all of them except the one they want to focus on. People with ADD are more likely to have problems doing this. I do agree that most people are being trained to be impatient, distracted, and overwhelmed. I also agree that this trend is dangerous and needs to be curtailed, but this is more a problem of correlation than causation. True attention deficit disorder can occur just as easily on a rural farm with few distractions as in New York City. However, I am worried about this pseudo-ADD behavior in our society as a whole. It won't cause ADD, but it is stressful. As a past history teacher, I was dismayed to see a recent trend on the History Channel when watching documentaries. In the past, if an army was marching, you would see them marching in real time. Now the programs fast forward the marching as if people no longer have the patience to see life the way it really is. Although our knowledge about attention deficit disorder is incomplete, there are many things about the condition that we do know. There is no doubt that attention deficit disorder is a genetic condition. If one parent has ADD, their children will have a 60% chance of contracting the disorder. If two parents have the condition, the chance of their children being ADD rise significantly to 90%. The exact gene or genes that cause this difficulty are not yet known, but there is a huge genetic component. I have yet to meet a client who I have identified with the disorder where the client and I did not find or identify another family member with the same disorder somewhere in the past 3 generations. Most clinicians agree that whatever the cause of ADD, the neurotransmitters or brain chemicals are out of balance in the condition. Most treatment has centered on establishing the balance of these neurotransmitters. There are many brain chemicals, but the ones most involved with psychiatric conditions are dopamine, norepinephrine, acetylcholine, GABA, and serotonin. These neurotransmitters send their messages via electrical impulses. Dopamine, norepinephrine, and acetylcholine are exhibitory neurotransmitters and increase the voltage and speed of electricity. They energize the body and mind. GABA and serotonin are inhibitory neurotransmitters. GABA, slowing the body down and promoting calm feelings, and serotonin promoting sleep. If these neurotransmitters are not in balance, people can become anxious, irritable, obsessive, and/or depressed. If the neurotransmitters are in balance, the assumption is that mental and bodily health results. Most ADD clinicians believe that the major cause of ADD is a lack of dopamine, and most research is centered on the supposition. It is believed that stimulant medications increase dopamine, which is why they are effective in treating the disorder. The use of dopamine-boosting antidepressants such as Wellbutrin and Strattera for ADD is based on this assumption as well. The findings from the SPECT scans also supports this position. It is assumed that both the prefrontal cortex and cerebellum have their activity boosted by dopamine. When a stimulant such as Ritalin is introduced, both of these areas become more active, and more electricity and blood flow is seen in the prefrontal cortex and in the cerebellum, as indicated by a greater amount of the color white, red, or yellow. It has been postulated by Dr. Amen and others that ADD could be a low-level seizure disorder. This is due to the fact that many ADHD clients rhythmically tap their hands or their feet involuntarily. Anti-seizure medications such as Dilantin work on the GABA pathway. I will discuss applied kinesiology or muscle testing in the next session, but by using this technique, I found some interesting tendencies. I rarely find a lack of dopamine with these people who are suffering from attention deficit disorder, but I almost always find a lack of GABA. I still believe that people with ADD have a lack of dopamine despite this finding, but I believe that the issue of the GABA deficiency is even more important. Another possible cause for attention deficit disorder, or at least one symptom of ADD, is reverse polarity. When discussing the issue of polarity, Western medicine meets Eastern medicine. It is documented in Western scientific literature that many people with ADD are uncoordinated, often have difficulty identifying their left and right hand, are awkward, and can be directionally challenged. It is also well known that the central nervous system, which runs down the back of the body, does not work as well if a person has ADD. Thus, the neural firing in the CNS is irregular. One of the ways the stimulants work is to activate this part of the body, essentially increasing the activity of the prefrontal cortex. It is also well known to Western science that the right side of the brain sends messages to the left side of the body, and that the left side sends messages to the right side. This allows a person to run more efficiently and in an integrated, holistic fashion. Eastern medicine and Western medicine do agree on a number of points. Each system agrees that the body and the mind run on electricity. They also agree that there are several areas in the middle of the body that are more important and have more activity than other areas. Eastern medicine names these areas chakras, while Western medicine gives names such as the solar plexus. Whatever the name given to these areas, they have a greater amount of electricity. Eastern medicine stresses the idea that there are particular points on the body called acupoints. These points are essentially electromagnetic relay stations or power stations that ensure that electricity does not degrade over distance. This is similar to the power stations in our cities. They further state that the body is made up of numerous rivers of energy or rivers of acupoints called meridians. If these meridians are in balance, the body is self-regulating and self-healing. If they are out of balance, then disharmony or sickness can result. The body's two main meridians are the central meridian that runs from the scrotum to below the lower lip, and the governing meridian, which runs from the top of the buttocks all the way over the head and stops right above the upper lip. If the electricity is running up these areas, then the prefrontal cortex is activated, meaning that the left brain is controlling the right side of the body and the right brain is controlling the left. If this is occurring, polarity is intact. If it is running the opposite way, which would be down, the prefrontal cortex is essentially shimmering irregularly with electricity, and the right brain is controlling the right side of the body, and the left brain is controlling the left side of the body. This results in awkwardness and many of the other symptoms that are seen in attention deficit disorder. However, shock from trauma can cause this reverse polarity as well. This reversal also can occur if someone is sick, lacks sleep, or lacks sufficient water. Applied kinesiology, based on Eastern medicine, is a system that chiropractors discovered. Due to the fact that the body is electric, it is possible to take a strong indicator muscle and test to see if that muscle remains strong when pressure is exerted by the examiner. If the muscle holds, the assumption is that there is no disruption of electricity from the muscle to the back of the brain. If a chiropractor touches another point on the body and a previously strong indicator muscle weakens, the assumption is that there is a relationship between the strength of that muscle and the other point that was touched. Applied kinesiology is a complete system based on muscle testing for both diagnostic and treatment purposes. Since everything in the world is alive and has an electrical frequency, it is possible to use applied kinesiology to test whether a particular food or medicine might help a person by having that person taste or smell the substance and then muscle testing. It is also possible to appropriately muscle test by having the person hold a pill or liquid in a glass vial on the chest. The polarity point is right between the eyes and at the bridge of the nose. If this point inhibits or weakens a previously strong indicator muscle, that person's polarity is running in the proper direction. If it remains strong, polarity is reversed. If that person smells a stimulant such as coffee or Ritalin and the muscle test weakens, that indicates a positive test for attention deficit disorder. This is a discovery that I made several years ago, though it is still not well known. It is also how I discovered the proprietary homeopathic blend used in the AdCare supplement.